This is the EWN Podcast Network.
Ever wondered how you could turn your side hustle into a full-time gig and spend more time together?
Hi, I'm Vikki, a #1 best-selling author.
And I'm John, a retired Los Angeles police officer. Welcome to Dig the Well, where we help couples navigate the world of business.
We've been married for 35 years, and because we built a successful side business, John retired 9 years earlier than he originally planned from the Los Angeles Police Department after 25 years on the job. Now we spend more time together, and we want to help couples like you do the same.
Join us as we help you overcome common obstacles, and we show you how to make extra income without sacrificing family time.
Ready to dig deep and build your well? Let's get started. Hello, hello. Welcome back to Dig the Well. I am waving an American flag in honor of Memorial Day.
Yep.
Yeah, whether you're listening to this in the future, coming up to Memorial Day next year, or we just had Memorial Day yesterday for us in the United States, and I've got my thin blue line American flag, just honoring all those that have paid the ultimate sacrifice. That's what Memorial Day is all about. I think some people, we haven't talked about this, but some people get confused between Veterans Day and Memorial Day.
Yeah. This is one of the few holidays that wasn't made up for the florist industry or the greeting card industry, right?
Right.
Or the shop, right?
Right.
It's an actual real holiday. It's to really, it has a real purpose.
Right. Yet it's turned into shopping.
I know.
It's really turned very commercial, barbecues and sales. But
yeah, and believe us, we don't mind having a barbecue. I enjoy barbecues and all that, and sales, right?
For me.
That isn't the point of this. But it's really cool that families and folks get together and have a barbecue, and still honor.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And, us being a police family, John and Vikki Downey here, by the way, for those of you listening for the first time and maybe didn't know, we are a police family. John was a Los Angeles police officer for 25 years. And so obviously we've been entrepreneurs our whole life, but obviously police sacrifices and military sacrifices are huge in our hearts. And so that's why we wanted to chat about Memorial Day and entrepreneurship. Truly, that's what the focus is of this episode. So we would love it if you would share with somebody who's not an entrepreneur necessarily, because a lot of times we're preaching to the choir in what we're teaching, what we're talking about to all y'all. But sometimes your friends need to hear a little bit about entrepreneurship as well from somebody else other than you, telling them, hey, come to my business, right? Shop for my business. So yeah, we picked Memorial Day today because it's always such a special honor. And me being a police wife, and some of you follow me on Instagram, and you know that I wrote the book Police Wife Survival Guide, and it went #1 in the US and internationally. So I have a lot of police wife followers, community. I follow all of them. We definitely have a community on there. And, John, what was really sad to me yesterday was I definitely saw people saying just happy Memorial Day and not much else. But I also saw a ton of reels about fallen police officers whose husband is now not with us, died in the line of duty, and the wife is carrying on with the children. And it really hit home for me yesterday. Really hit home. And so, yeah, I think we wanted to just call attention to the fact that it's not about barbecues. It's not about running a sale. Although, you know what, honestly, we did it with our business. I chose not to promote it yesterday, but I talked about our sale that was going on before Memorial Day, and it goes for a few more days. So I've been talking about it today, but that was a personal decision on my part. I'm not, putting anybody down that promoted their business yesterday, but yeah, we wanted to just talk about that a little bit. Yeah. And, something else you might not have thought of when it comes to entrepreneurship and patriotism is why not shop from a blue line family, and military, right? Green line, is that what
green, yeah.
The green. So, let's talk about that. Why not go out of your way, especially in days like these, near Memorial Day, near Veterans Day, during Police Week, because there is a Police Week. Why not seek out companies that are owned by veterans, companies that are owned by police families, and patronize them? What do you think, John?
Yeah, if you think about it, like those are the two. Those are the two groups, right? Whether it's military or police, that risk their lives to protect you.
Yeah, either overseas or here
on a daily basis.
Yeah,
on a daily basis, they risk their lives to protect you and keep you safe, so you can sleep safely at home in bed and travel to work and come home to your kids.
Yeah.
Who else does that except for the military and the police? And like Vic said, the military, in foreign lands, and also at times here, but for the most part here in domestically, it's the police.
Your local police. Yeah. What would you do without them? I've had. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's awful nice that if you know of someone who is a military veteran or a police officer or retired police officer, like I am now, that you patronize their businesses. If they have a business, go, spend your money there.
Right.
And help them out.
Right.
And and when you see them, thank them for their service.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. You've always told me, you used to come home, you didn't know you were like beaming, but I could see the spark in your eyes when you would tell me a story about, it was typically women that would, but some men.
Either,
yeah. But the ones I remember, women just thanking you for your service and how you don't need to be thanked. I remember you saying that, I don't need to be thanked, but boy, that did feel pretty good. It's nice. Yeah. It's very nice. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's even great. Even if you don't need to purchase anything, you just thank them. Yeah, it goes a very long way. We're great at thanking the military, and not now. It took 20 years plus to open our eyes to that. Ever since the Vietnam War, and then more stuff happened, and I remember there was a real movement to thank the military, but I, personally, as a police wife, I always felt like, well, what about the police that are protecting us day in, day out in our homeland? That was always my thought.
If you look back on it, though, what drove the mass opinion against, especially against those that came back from Vietnam? It was the media, right? It was the media portraying these young men, mostly men, because we weren't deploying women in combat, but it was our military, our young military, going out and killing people and fighting in a war that had nothing to do with us. And then they demonized them. They were just doing their jobs. Let's face it. They didn't say, hey, I'm going to buy a ticket to Vietnam, fly over there, get a gun, and just start shooting people. That's not what happened. They did that representing their country. They did what they were ordered to do. And yet when they came home, they were demonized.
Right. It was horrible. We were little kids, but I remember that.
For sure. And thank you, media. Thank you for that. And then since then, they're starting to portray the military as heroes, like they should be. But look, what are they doing to the police department? What have they been doing for decades to police officers? Demonizing the police. And it's getting old because they lie. We've talked about this in a previous episode, but being in Los Angeles, a lot of what happens in Los Angeles is covered by local media, whether it's Channel 7, Channel 4, Channel 2, Channel 11, you name it. There's a news crew that's out there covering it. And I can't tell you how many times I was on something that was newsworthy. And of course, they would have their remote reporter on the ground. I'm here at scene doing this and that. They would ask us what happened, and we would tell them as much as we could, which oftentimes was the whole thing, right? We're not holding back anything. The only time we wouldn't give up certain information is if it jeopardized the investigation of a crime. But if there's no follow-up investigation on whatever happened, we just tell them what happened. Generally, that wasn't enough for the media. In many cases, it wasn't sexy enough for them to air on the evening news. So I would tell Vic after this happened, go, hey, watch the news. I might be on it. whatever it was, I was there. This is what happened, Vic. I tell her the whole thing.
Right.
She would watch the news because, I wouldn't get home until 4 in the morning, 3 in the morning, whatever.
Yeah.
She would watch the news, and they told they showed the scene.
Yeah.
You could see us walking around in the background doing our job, but they told a completely different story. They lied about what happened.
It was cuckoo
Yeah,
for
it
both
was
of us.
a straight up lie.
Yeah, it was cuckoo.
I would get home, and Vic would sometimes even record it. So I would come home, and the next day she goes, "Oh, I recorded it." I would watch it, and I'm like, "Vic, that didn't happen.
Yeah,
what they said happened. None of that happened. They made that up."
It is crazy. It's like we were living in the Twilight Zone. I mean, honestly, because I knew what really happened, and we would see on the news what they pretended happened, and it was horrible. Yeah,
they always embellished it, and so that's when you hear people talk about fake media, fake news, and whatnot. I'm telling you, even on a scale that small, even going, just seeing what I saw at scene, and then seeing it in the news later, and seeing what lies they were pushing just to make it sound better so that you get more viewers, it really tells me that most of what I'm probably watching on TV isn't the truth. If you're watching TV media, mainstream media news, you're not probably getting the truth.
Right. We did do a whole podcast episode on that. I think it's like episode 30 if you're kind of looking for it, but it was about, is the media telling the truth? Yeah. So anyway,
generally when they cover the police, they cover it in a negative way. Right. Yeah. When do you hear about, how great this police officer, whatever the story was, it was really good. There's a couple of times I'll do it because I think it's going to play well in the public. But for the most part, it's always negative stuff.
Yeah, they don't look for the good.
And that's what happened. And so that's why I think the military back in the day was so looked down upon, and those veterans, came home to such a hostile country toward them. Right. And now that's what you've been seeing that a lot with the police. I think it's turning though. I think they're, obviously it has for the military, but I think it is even for police.
Right. Definitely it is. Yeah. So we really want to talk about a lot of those things today. We're not trying to be controversial. We're trying to be truthful and get the truth out. And so, but so with all that being said, we've talked also as a family about entrepreneurship and patriotism and why we started this country in the first place, right? We were leaving England, or the new settlers, right? We're leaving Europe, coming here for true freedoms. And we had to fight for that. And many, many people died, right? Hundreds of thousands, I would think, right? Over the years in the different wars. It's gotta be.
Oh yeah. But at the beginning, it wasn't probably that
much till then World War I.
None of them should have, right? They left, found new land, and just wanted to be away from the oppression of government.
Too much taxation.
And good grief.
Yeah. All the things. And so, I want you to really think about that. We used to joke about it, and it's kind of a nursery rhyme, but, it was entrepreneurship. It wasn't corporate America that was founded in the United States back in the day, 1776. It was the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, right? So it was all of that. And that's what John and I have always been, is one of those smaller businesses.
I always found interesting is when you go to any town, right? And you go to these small family-owned businesses, they're almost always owned by a foreign family, someone who immigrated here. Well, we all did, right? But I mean, these aren't people that were born here. Right. The people that are starting these businesses, and their English isn't. You can tell English is a second language for them. So they weren't born here. Their parents weren't born here. Their grandparents weren't born here, and yet predominantly they own all the businesses, right? And think about it, go to a dry cleaner, go to a 7-Eleven, go almost anywhere, liquor store, anywhere, right? And
it's an immigrant.
Why is that? And when you talk to them, because I have before, I've just asked a little bit about them because I'm just interested to know, right?
We were raised, I think, to be interested in other people, so we do. We just honestly are curious.
Pretty much every case, they are like, "Oh yeah, I moved my family here. I came here because this was the land of opportunity, because I could have this business. I couldn't have it in my own country. The government wouldn't allow me to have a business."
Right.
I'm thinking, wow. And we take that for granted. And yet that's maybe why you don't see a lot of for Americans or people that were born here in the U.S. Having their own business. I just
they
appreciate it.
Yeah, they don't appreciate it. They don't know what it's like to scrap and grind it out.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say everybody, but
I think most people that are born in the United States, I think they're big. What do they always say? Like, get a good education, get a good job, kind of a thing, right?
Yeah.
And so they think that's the
American
path
dream.
to success. That's the American dream, is to go work for a large corporation.
It's not.
I can tell you that's not it.
It's not.
That's not it.
It is not. It's forging your own path, forging your own way, something you can be proud of. So you created.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that if you work for a large corporation that there's anything wrong with it. It's just you're not living the American dream.
Yeah, it's like a means to an end, right?
Yeah.
It just pays the bills. It's not exciting.
Yeah. So the way we did it, and I think it makes sense, is that I worked for, obviously I worked for a large city, a large organization. They provided good benefits that we were able to use for as a family, medical, dental, the whole thing like that, right? And it was a secure paycheck. But it didn't stop me from still being an entrepreneur. I still had side businesses, and then I retired early, just so we could focus on entrepreneurship
and creating a legacy to leave,
helping others do the same thing. And that's really, I think that's the American dream.
Right, exactly. And so if you have a job right now, maybe a friend shared this podcast because they know you were thinking about becoming an entrepreneur and you didn't know the first thing about, how to do it. Listen to our previous podcast. That will help you. But just do it. Go for it. Start that additional income stream. And there's nothing to lose.
Yeah. The key there is the additional income stream. Don't go and quit your job.
Right.
And then just say, okay, I'm going to jump in the deep end and do this thing. Keep your job.
Yeah.
That's a great safety net, right? That way, if your home-based business or whatever your second business is, if it takes off, you can always, if you want to leave your corporate job, you can leave. If it doesn't work out, with the way you expected, at least you have still income and benefits.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I think we kind of fell in it. We were entrepreneurs to begin with. Then, police officer, teacher. Then I retired myself. Then John retired. But we've always had that side business. So I agree. It just gives you extra options on your life instead of just feeling stuck. Right. So, yeah. How about people that we were just talking about this over the weekend? We have a friend that has been doing a job just like 4 years and is ready to jump ship. And we're both over here going, don't do it. Don't do it. You do have to stick it out sometimes with jobs to get to the other side. But you could, stick with that and start a side gig would be our best advice. Right.
I think a lot of people who don't start a side gig, they look at it, and this is from my own personal perspective, because I've actually seen this happen because I've shared it with a lot of other police officers, and it's so lucrative to work overtime that they just don't see the big picture. They look at it like, well, why would I invest my time trying to build my own business that's not going to pay me because I tell them, when you start a business, it's not going to be very lucrative for the first couple of months, for the first several months sometimes.
If not years. Yeah.
It could take a year or two before you really start to see some significant income coming in. But then usually, if you do it right, that income is going to continue to grow and it's going to continue to come to you, especially if you do the right business that has some sort of residual, some sort of passive income involved in it, right? So if it has residual income, the work you did a year ago, you're still getting paid on. You're getting paid a portion of it, right?
Right.
That doesn't happen with overtime. It's like if one of the guys that I've talked to worked like a 10-hour overtime shift, let's say, so they're going to get a good big chunk of money, or at least they're going to get paid that on the next paycheck, the 10 hours of overtime. But then the paycheck that follows will have nothing on it. They have to rework that full 10 hours to get that pay again.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, the tax on overtime is crazy. I mean, some of the guys would laugh about it. They would say, like, I don't want to work any more overtime on this pay period because I'm going to get slammed in taxes. Wow. I'm thinking, but still, you're going to take home at least more money. But I think they get so burned out on all the hours they're working, but they don't want to start a business.
Yeah,
I
that
don't
makes
get it.
no sense. But I think we've talked about it. They're not business owners. They don't have that mentality. Maybe they didn't have the example of any, family that owned a business. So we're here to say, we can help you.
It's so funny too, because
we can help you change that mindset.
there are so many guys that I've worked with that find out through the grapevine that I retired, because I retired from a different division than when I usually worked. And then they'll like, oh my gosh, I heard you retired last year.
Did they never think you were going to, because you're such a hard charger?
I don't know. I because most people don't retire with the time on that I had.
Yeah, right.
And so they were like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. You got so lucky.
The lucky word that we also did another podcast on that.
How did I get lucky? I said, no, it's because my wife and I built a business outside of being on the job. We built a business. We invested our time and our effort in building a business that we knew would pay off someday, and it did.
Yeah, and it still does.
And so I asked him. I said, "Yeah, maybe I got lucky just doing what I did. How lucky are you with the overtime? You still working overtime?" And they don't get it. They're like, "Yep, I sign up for every one shift with working transit, working the subways or whatever. It's easy money."
And they're not open to.
You're not even at home. You're spending that time.
Right. And I will tell you, being the wife of a police officer, if you're a police officer listening, you don't want to be the one that's away all the time. You don't want your wife feeling alone, feeling like she's a single parent. You don't want that. So maybe be open to new avenues of making money, which is additional income streams. And definitely reach out to us. We would love to help anyone, police, military, not. We would love that. Yeah. So, because I know you've reached out to some, but maybe you're too close. It's funny how that whole your friends and family were just too close. And it's funny because we have acquaintances that ask our opinion and follow through and are successful all the time. But that's just life in general, right? Family and friends are the hardest nut to crack. And you're sitting over here doing great, and they're struggling and they don't want to listen. So.
Yeah, and then what originally you were saying about someone wanting to jump ship and go to another job or whatever, and you were right about sticking with a plan, because oftentimes you have a job, you have to pay your dues, right? And pretty much every job, any occupation, whatever it is, the new guy, new gal, they have to pay their dues, right? And it's not a lot of fun. Right. And then once you've paid your dues, it gets better.
Yeah.
Right? If it doesn't get any better, then I think you picked the wrong occupation. But it'll get better. I remember early on my job.
Right.
I loved what I did. I had fun, but I got the crap assignments. And generally
I remember that.
Those at the bottom of the totem pole for seniority had to work the holidays, had to work weekends. It was just that's the way it is. And it's like that with a lot of occupations, but it'll get better, right? You'll get past having to pay dues, and someone else will be paying those dues. But if you leave a job after a couple of years while you're just paying your dues, or you're getting toward the end of paying your dues, you're just going to go to another job that you're going to start that whole clock over, paying dues again. And if you do that over and over again, you've spent your whole working life, your whole career, just paying dues.
Yeah, starting and restarting almost.
You never got the payoff for the dues that you did. So I don't know. It's tough, and every situation is different. And sometimes, you got to move on because your future isn't where you're currently at, right? So I get that, but I also think you need to consider: is it just that I need to pay my dues and I just need to suck it up and just get through this, and it'll get better, or it's never going to get better and I need to go now and start something new. Maybe that's it.
Or start something on the side so that when they're fully fed up, right?
Always have something on the side. Even if you like what you're doing, even if you think, gosh, I have the best job in the world. I'm underworked and overpaid. Said nobody, right? But even if you believe that, it may not be like that forever. Right. And that's the whole point of Dig the Well.
The gravy train can end. Yeah,
and that was the whole point of the title to this podcast is Dig the Well. Because you want to dig that well before you need the water. Because you don't know when that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And it could slap you in the face
Yeah.
tomorrow, or it may take a year from now or 10 years from now. But you want to have that well dug, or at least on its way to being dug.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
Right.
I'm like, woo, woo.
Yeah, it never hurts to have multiple sources of income.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it really doesn't. So, yeah, that's our challenge. We also wanted to challenge you on this podcast to think differently. Are you using your time, your talents to the best of your ability? Are you just feeling stuck? Really, that's a question you need to ask yourself and have that heartfelt conversation with yourself or maybe your spouse. Are you feeling stuck? Or do you want that extra income? Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like it's like almost like a no-brainer why you wouldn't want extra income. Like you see people that endorse different products and whatnot. I got an email from Hertz Rent-A-Car. Hertz, right? Tom Brady is their spokesperson.
Oh gosh.
And he's standing there, win Tom Brady's car. Well, you're not actually winning his like Lambo or his like Gulfstream jet or whatever. You're winning a Hertz rental car that they're selling after someone that's been beaten to death as a rental. But I think he signs the dashboard, so it's Tom Brady's car, right? So he's getting paid by Hertz. Do you think Tom Brady is hurting for cash and needs to have that extra job at Hertz? He doesn't need it, but he still does it. It's another source of income, another stream of income for he and his family.
Yeah. But what about regular people, about like you and us? That's where the extra stream of you can have that too. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm
That's what I'm saying, because it's like for the folks who need it, which we do, right? Most of you guys that are listening or watching this, an extra $500 to $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
A stream of income that's $500 to $1,000 a month would move the needle, would make a difference. It does for us.
Right.
That's why we do what we do. It does not for Tom Brady.
I know.
I guarantee you.
But yet he still does it.
Right.
So he's smart.
Exactly.
He's probably banking that
That's
money.
why he's rich.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons, because you think about other talented professional athletes who are broke.
Yeah.
Because they didn't manage their money well. They didn't do what
very true.
These like Tom Brady's are doing. And there's a reason, right?
Right. Yeah. So, I think that we really wanted to hit home with you today that freedom isn't free. That's a catchphrase, but when you really think about it, it's absolutely true. How many men, especially back in the day, and women now that are fighting in the military, died for our freedoms to keep us safe.
Yeah, think how many have died on foreign land, and for freedom that they never got to come back to.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. And so those of us left here, we should be carrying the torch for them and leading the way. And I hope you are. I hope you're really thinking about your side gig, if you are an entrepreneur, I hope you really reevaluate, some of maybe the charities that you give to as well. I definitely wanted to talk about that. The Gary Sinise Foundation is an incredible organization. He helps his organization, because I went to an event for LAPD wives. It was our first conference last year about this time, and the Gary Sinise Foundation supported that. And I learned all about the foundation. It's amazing. And you had always told me he's such a great guy, and he does so much. Ever since Lieutenant Dan, right? Ever since the Forrest Gump, right? I think
the millions and millions that he made from that movie alone, right? Because he's done other things, but that I think really was the big one.
Yeah.
He's chosen to give that money back and start this foundation.
Yeah. It's wonderful. So, who are you? What foundations are you giving to? And I mean, honestly, and that's another topic about having a side gig, because if you don't have the money, maybe you want to give to a foundation, nonprofit, donate more to church, tithe, but you can't. You just don't see it in the budget. That's another reason to dig the well. I think people don't think about that. I'm fine. I don't need to do anything else. But are you really? Are you really fine? Are you really living the life you want to live and giving back the way you want to give back? I challenge you to think about it.
Yeah, it's true. Because I know you earlier said that we were kind of preaching to the choir about, because a lot of people that are listening or watching are already entrepreneurs. But I think a lot of the people, and I don't get mad at me, but a lot of people are entrepreneurs, but they just dabble.
Yeah.
At it.
Come on, be truthful. Look in the mirror. Is it you?
And I mean, guys, if you just run with it and just sacrifice and just say, hey, look, for the next year, I'm going to put my head down. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to work as hard as I can for as long as I can. And I guarantee you 12 months from now, you're going to be so thankful that you did, because you're going to have that stream of income is going to be, is going to be huge. It's going to be much bigger than you thought. Like I said, 500 to 1,000 would make a difference. It's going to be bigger than that. So I think maybe for just remember that don't take for granted what we have right in this country.
Yeah, don't
and run with it.
Yeah, definitely. So, gosh, this has been awesome. Not sure exactly how to close it out.
How to land the plane.
How to land on the aircraft carrier. Land the plane on the air. That ties it into the military. Oh, and fun fact, we didn't talk about this, but John's dad was in the Navy and was on a nuclear aircraft carrier.
Attack aircraft carrier.
Yeah. How cool is that? So who knows? Maybe that's why our affinity for the military is so big too. Because we were talking about, like, where did we get our innate patriotism from?
Yeah, because your dad was
in the Army. Yeah. And that's, you guys, how he went to Princeton. He came from very humble means, Danish immigrant. His parents were immigrants from Denmark, had a delicatessen. So very, very humble in Brooklyn. And he couldn't afford. He went to a public university, New York Polytechnic, and then wanted to go to Princeton. And the only way was that GI Bill. So he joined the Army. And that's how he got to Princeton. I've never talked about that. Mm-hmm. And then your dad, helping people land the plane on his aircraft carrier.
Well, that wasn't his job.
No, I know. I'm just having fun with my little...
Two points I want to bring up. We'll get to the landing the airplanes and on the flight deck. But the other thing was, I don't know if y'all caught what Vic said, that her dad came from kind of modest beginnings, but his parents, her grandparents, right? So his parents immigrated here from Denmark and owned a delicatessen, right? They didn't own the delicatessen in Denmark, where probably we would have been more successful.
I know, right?
They instead decided, no, I want to have this business. And maybe they couldn't. I don't know what Danish law is. But they came here to the U.S. to open their delicatessen and to do that here.
Yeah,
right.
I know. It's the coolest story.
So then getting back to the landing the air. My dad, when he was in the Navy, he was in nuclear weapons, which sounded really cool. And I thought that was pretty cool until he died at a really young age. He had terminal cancer in his 40s. And it was all over his body. So I'm pretty sure it was the exposure to the nukes back when he was in the Navy.
Yeah, because before we, I want you to tell that part of the story too. How they could tell if they had too much radiation is actually insane. And this was in the 50s, right? Because they got married in the 60s, so it must have been in the late 50s.
Yeah, so it was. So it was a secret that this ship had nuclear weapons on board. So it was they originally. I remember his insignia on his sleeve had the
nuclear.
Yeah, it had the neutron with all the electrons going around it, orbiting around it. Which obviously then that's nuclear. Yeah. So they made him take that off, and he had like a gunner's mate or something. They just gave everybody just different insignia.
Did you keep the patch? Was he able to keep?
Somebody broke in and stole everything out of the garage.
Oh my God!
So anywho,
it's horrible.
They would wear a little badge on their shirt when they were near the nuclear weapons, and it started green and it would change color as it was exposed to radiation, and it would get to the point where it would get red. And so if it got to the red stage, they had to immediately get a scrub down. And so my dad told me, he goes, if that happened to you one time, you realize you're just going to steal another badge that shows green and just toss the red.
The scrub down bothered him
because the scrub down is basically they strip you naked and they take these really really coarse, stiff, bristled brushes and scrub every inch of your body. And he said you would just actually be bleeding in places. They were scrubbing your skin so hard with this whatever they used and these brushes. And he said, having gone through that one time, he said it wasn't just me. Everybody did the same thing. They just ditched those badges for green because they didn't want to go through the hell of being scrubbed down.
Wow, that's crazy.
So he would have been better off standing on the flight deck with paddles.
Yeah.
Bringing in
yeah. And, it would be interesting to find out all of his mates on,
I know.
If they all wound up with cancer. Yeah. And of course, the family never sued. We're not into that kind of thing at all. But yeah, what was he, 45 when he was diagnosed? I mean, guys, that's so young.
And it was terminal when he was diagnosed.
And he lived 7 more years.
All throughout his body. So anyways, on a brighter note, this is an entrepreneur show. And another reason to build another side business to do this is because it allows you to do things that you normally wouldn't do or couldn't afford to do, let's say. And so that one of the things I had on my bucket list that, what it is?
Yeah, I think.
I got to check off.
Yeah.
Was anyway, so the ship that my dad was on was the Lexington, the USS Lexington. And they still have it. It's a museum in Corpus Christi, Texas. So it's open. You can go see it. And I've always wanted to go out there and see it, right? So I forget. It was a while ago. It was years ago.
It was 2015. I remember.
Was it 2015?
I remember. And our side gig paid.
Yeah, that's why we did, because we were doing really well with one of our side gigs. In fact, the one we're still doing today. But all of a sudden,
so 10 years.
So okay, get this the timeline. You started that about 2012, I think, right?
Yeah.
So in 2012,
coming up on our anniversary.
So remember when I said it, you don't see the payoff right away, that it may take some time to build, but then all of a sudden when it builds, it's more than that 500 to 1,000. It's significantly more. Well, that's what happened. So we started this thing we joined in 2012, built it, and then by 2015, it was
thriving.
Yeah, it was really,
it was off the
rails. So then we said, hey, I want to go and visit the ship that my dad was on. I want to go see the Lexington. And then, so we invited my mom to come with us. So we brought my mom, bought all we paid for everything, airfare, hotels, the whole thing, right? Because we wanted to treat her to go back to see that, see that ship.
Yeah, that was really, I'm glad you brought that up.
Of course. Yeah. So we got pictures and really cool.
Yeah. And there's a lot of number consistencies. I don't know if this is the right word, but 16 was on the flight deck in a circle, and our son was born on July 16th. And I just had an aha moment. We started our business June 16th. And with you saying that, I was like, wow, I forgot about that 16. So if you believe in numbers, that's kind of crazy. So yeah.
So anyways, another reason to do that is just check things off of your bucket list. And if you don't have a bucket list, you need to have one. You need to have one.
Gosh, and it's making me think of more of our things we've checked off our bucket list.
Checked off
so many. We'll have to do an episode about that. But you know what? Thank you for being with us today, and take a moment of your own personal silence and really think about all the people that didn't come home to protect and save our freedoms. Truly today, at some point in your day.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. All right. And please share this with someone you know and love. Let them hear this podcast. And we would love it if you would like and subscribe and comment if you would. All right. Okay. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Happy Memorial Day. Thanks for joining us on Dig the Well.
We hope you feel empowered and ready to take on new challenges.
Remember, if we can do it, so can you. Keep learning, keep believing, and going after your dreams.
And if you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone who needs a little inspiration or maybe a nudge in the right direction.
Help us grow this community of go-getters. Together, we can achieve greatness and get back to family.
Thanks for listening, and let's keep digging the well.